Okay, we're live. Testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn when you're gonna copy and paste an old script, just make sure to change the names.
And 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Pepper, and I am here from the East Coast with Paul Packler. How are you, Paul Packler?
Fantastic. How are you doing, Corey?
I'm great. In the last week, your beard has grown in quite full.
It's very thick. I think this might be goodbye. The irony of you bringing it up. I think it just looks too scraggly. I wanted it to be thick, but I can't make it look good.
So it's not thick enough for you. You wanted it thicker.
Yeah, there's like, I don't know, it just looks like not mothballs, like cotton balls that I've stuck to my face.
Oh.
What do you think? Does it look all right?
I don't know. It looks okay from here.
No. Anyway.
If you're going for an Abe Lincoln kind of thing.
Oh, always trying to go for the Abe Lincoln. He's a beloved president.
Well, and people are just starting to learn about him too.
Yeah, he's getting more and more recognition.
Amazing how that goes.
No, wait, I'm sorry. That's Frederick Douglass. Yes.
Yeah, it was the same era. People just talk about him now.
Yeah.
Wow, this episode, Paul, was so piss poor.
This is maybe the third, possibly the fourth time that they've done the same plot line of Elise works too much and can't be a good mother.
I thought to myself when I read the blurb as to what the episode was about, that they had to have missed some nuance of that blurb. And then I watched the episode and realized they do this once a year. They do this episode once a year.
I remember in season 2, I think it was the season finale.
It was. It wasn't like a two-parter or something.
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah. What's this one called? Mommy Dearest?
This one is Super Mom.
Okay.
And it's sort of amazing. And the other thing that I find and I have found it disturbing every time they've done this plot. And that's why, having done this plot 4 different times, it still amazes me. They've presented to us, ostensibly, a liberal mother and father who grew up as young adults together during the women's liberation movement and feminism of the late 60s and early 70s. That's the very foundation on which this show is built. And then you see them not being able to work it out and learning how to work out something which their characters would have already known.
Yeah, it's very odd. These characters are, I think, a little bit further to the left, hypothetically, than Gary David Goldberg actually is.
Right.
And so he's not able to, like, write that type of character. He keeps injecting his own point of view, which isn't the same as what these characters are supposed to be.
You know, whenever I watch Stephen in particular on the show, my thought is somewhere on the Phil Donahue, Alan Alda scale of celebrity feminist. You know, a man who's very progressive and is constantly aware of a woman's point of view in any argument.
Right.
And in this show, it's almost as if he's totally unaware of her point of view. She's totally unaware of his point of view. And it's as if they didn't talk to each other over the last 25 years. And they've just met.
It's very, very odd that he has such a reactionary point of view when it comes to this particular plot line. And
that we've seen over and over again.
I mean, I think it could be a little bit more interesting if he was okay with it, but then there were different problems that came up from it.
Absolutely. That's a much more interesting plot. Why don't they go, if they want to do the same plot, just have a different take on the plot?
Yeah, but this is always, life would be so much better if you just stayed home. That's what it is.
That's what it comes down to. And when they have the argument, who should quit their job? It's never an option for him to quit his job.
Right.
Never.
And it's actually kind of funny in an ironic way that they make these terrible PBS jokes in the voice of Alex.
Absolutely.
Alex keeps making fun of PBS, I think just coincidentally. I don't think they necessarily realize what they were doing, but with the point that you're making, if he makes less money and she makes more money, he should stay home if this is what we're saying.
That's exactly what I thought with those PBS jokes. First of all, I personally find the PBS jokes to be offensive because, 30 years later, with the defunding of the National Endowment for the Arts and public broadcasting, it's fucking ridiculous for anyone to have an opinion of PBS that it is beneath them. It is crucial to American children and the arts that we have something on public television.
Absolutely. And that famous Mr. Rogers testimony before the Senate was in 1969 because Nixon wanted to cut public funding for television, for public television.
Every time Alex makes one of those jokes, it's sort of like a little poke in my back that really irritates me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not making fun of PBS. PBS is just fine. It's like making fun of other things that are good. Let's make fun of cancer research.
Yeah. And the joke is that PBS has no money. But that's like, why is that? It's like, poor people, they have no money. Isn't that funny?
Exactly. That's sad that PBS has no money. How about contribute money to it?
Yeah.
And then it always goes in, and that's exactly what I thought, was that if he works for PBS, he's working for public broadcasting. It's not like being a network executive for CBS or Fox. So he makes practically no money. She's a freaking architect. You could see by the office door that she had the office. She and Jerry have the office together with a secretary in it. Clearly, she's making more money than he is. That's a higher trained position.
And at the same time, again, we don't know if sometimes she has an office that she works in, sometimes she's a home architect.
In the kitchen, right. Her drafting table is at home in the kitchen.
But at the same time, in this episode, did we just learn that her name is in the company's, that's the name of the company, is something in Keaton?
I don't know if that... I had the same reaction. I don't know if that was a joke or exposition. I couldn't tell. Whether maybe it was foreshadowing something that's coming up, that she wants to be a partner, that she's a future partner, that her work is so good that her secretary thinks she's going to be a partner.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. And I was too lazy to go back.
I didn't go back with myself. I just thought, no, that just fell flat. Whatever it was didn't work.
Yeah.
Should we start back at the beginning here in the kitchen? Stephen and Elise are eating breakfast, and thankfully OJ is there. Not Simpson. I have to clarify now that he's out of prison. Just the juice is there.
Yeah, is he out of prison now?
Yeah, he's out.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy world. So they're drinking. Stephen's drinking a little OJ, and he says, she's been working hard on some project, designing some project. I forget what the name of the project is that she was designing. And he says to her very early in the scene, I missed you. Because she got out of bed last night to work on the project. And he says it sincerely. I missed you. Did he really miss her? I mean, so she wasn't in bed for a couple of hours?
Yeah. I mean, if it's been happening consistently, maybe. I don't know.
I miss you. It's just one of those awkward moments that was just like, shut the fuck up. I don't understand what's going on with you people.
The one thing I want to say that this episode starts off in a promising way is I loved everybody's outfits. I thought everyone looked cool. Elise had this green, khaki green jacket with huge shoulder pads that looked awesome.
Exactly right for the 70s.
And yeah. And then Stephen had a purple jacket tie shirt. There was different colors of black and purple that looked very cool.
Yeah, it looked very sharp.
Everyone had a very distinct color palette when they came in.
And Alex enters wearing the mullet of the season. It was flowing in this episode. His mullet is so fucking good now.
Yeah, it's perfect. I don't know what happens, but from episode to episode, it changes drastically.
I think this season is the season of the mullet for us, that we'll be discussing his mullet every week because it has its own personality right now.
The new orange juice.
Yeah, it is. And of course, at this very moment, it was the perfect melding of mullet and orange juice, because the mullet picks up a glass of orange juice too. And we find out that Elise and everyone in the family is very, very busy. and we can't find anybody to pick up Andrew from preschool.
It's tough. I guess they don't have buses at this preschool. Is that a thing?
I guess not. They don't have aftercare like they do at most preschools nowadays. See, I wish I won't even mention the fact that Scott's not here and he's the expert on preschool because he's got the two preschoolers.
Yeah.
But it's been 13, 12 years since I've had a preschooler. But we had extended care so that you pay a little extra whenever you do it. They charge you for it, and you can keep the kid until 6 o'clock until you get out of work.
That's good.
But apparently they don't have extended care at Andrew's preschool, and nobody, including Lauren, who shows up. Courtney Cox is back for another totally impotent performance. Nobody can pick up Andrew. There's no one. Mallory's busy. Alex is busy. Lauren is busy. And Stephen and Elise, this is where the scene, and of course, we come back that this is very important as to who was going to pick up Andrew. And do you remember it the same way I do, or do you just not care at all? That I believe they left this scene with nobody deciding they would pick up Andrew.
I feel like it just sort of goes away like a fart in the wind.
That's it. It petered out. The conversation about picking up Andrew, they worked it for a good long time, established the fact that nobody had the time to pick up Andrew. Andrew even commented about the fact that nobody's going to pick up Andrew.
He's like, I'll walk home. It's fine.
Right. and then they move on to the fact that nobody picked up Andrew. The thing that I thought was so strange was, obviously, as a parent, I've had that conversation. Hell, we just had that conversation before we started recording tonight as to who's going to be available on Saturday to do a podcast or pick up my son from his baseball game. But the thing of it is there's always a conclusion. That argument just doesn't peter out. There's no point in having the discussion unless there's okay, so you're going to take care of it, or we've got to come up with another plan. Let me make a few phone calls and see if I can get some help.
Exactly. And even the fact that it's not real, that this is just a TV show, you still want to set up the problem at least. They don't even do that efficiently.
Right. So it just goes away, and we're into the next scene. And the next scene takes place in the office that, to the best of my recollection, we've never seen before.
This is a different set than the last office she worked in.
Right. Okay, that's what I'm saying. It's a different set. We've seen her in an office, but it wasn't this company per se, was it?
No, it wasn't. But at the same time, it's interesting. It's almost Marxist in the way that it says that everyone just fulfills a role when it comes to utilitarianism and capitalism, that no one can be their true selves because you have the loud lummox who is a sexual harasser, and then you have the woman that puts up with him. These are two characters that we've seen in all of the other Elise works in an office.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But we meet upon joining the office here. We meet two characters right off the bat, and I don't even know what her name is. The secretary's name. She's everyone's secretary, or is she just the big boss's secretary?
Hard to tell.
Because she was doing an awful lot of work in an office door that seemed to indicate that it was Elise's and Jerry's office.
Right.
And we meet Jerry Danilo, played by the wonderful actor Jay Thomas, who just passed away a month or so ago. So that made me sad. The minute he walked in, I like Jay Thomas. I've always liked Jay Thomas. He was a recurring for a very long time on Cheers.
I heard a story about him, and see what you think. He got fired from Cheers for making fun of Rhea Perlman. Is that true?
I think I may have heard something like that too, where they wrote him out of Cheers at one point.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't know he made fun of her.
I have no idea. That's why I don't want to make shit up.
He's been a regular guest on Howard Stern over the years during his life.
And Letterman. He would throw the football.
Yes, he had a whole an annual visit with Letterman.
Yeah.
Always liked Jay. After Jay had his thing on Cheers, he had his own CBS series. CBS wrote a series for him, and it was ran for maybe a season or two. I found him to be a very likable guy all the time. Whenever I saw him on a talk show, I found him to be likable. Whenever I heard him on Howard, I thought he was likable. There was just something about him. It was what it was. He was real. He was believable. He was character-y. And there was something that was sort of like smart-assy that I liked about him.
Right.
He just certainly wasn't used well in this at all. And they sort of make some assumption here, like this is somebody she's talked about. This is another one of those things they do on the show all the time, where it's like, hey, I don't understand why you guys couldn't have just backed up those index cards 3 weeks and mentioned him 3 weeks ago. Why are you guys running a line about this new guy I'm working with, Jerry, 3 weeks ago, and then we meet Jerry in 3 weeks? I don't know why you can't just write something like that, because instead you start a scene with an assumption that we know who these people are.
It's weird. I mean, you're supposed to do that with like improv and stuff like that.
Right.
It's better to have a like a relationship. You don't just make a scene about meeting someone.
Right, because that's boring. But if we're going to have it, they don't give us any exposition at all. They don't give us any, they never gave us exposition before. And he doesn't start the scene by saying, Elise, in the 8 years I've been working with you, I've never seen you this busy. At least you've been giving us exposition that you've been working together for 8 years.
Yeah.
Instead, it's just, I've never seen you this busy. Oh, really? Well, how long have you been working with her? When did you meet her? Because we're just meeting you right now and no one's ever mentioned you before.
Yeah, it's really weird. Do you think the problem is us? Do you think the problem is that we've got 20, 30 years of shows that do have through lines?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I question that also, and I think it probably is. Because I wrote down here, hey, the scene plays like we're supposed to know them. The scene plays like we're supposed to care about these people. And then ultimately I thought to myself, is this for a spinoff? Is this a J. Thomas spinoff that they're trying to do? It just seemed like there was an assumption of something there with that secretary, with the all-knowing, smart alecky Eve Arden secretary, and he's sort of like a good, a schnook. He's a good schnook in the office.
Right.
Nobody can remember my name. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it was a lot. You definitely felt between those two characters and the actors that they got for them that they were trying to do like a soft pilot or something, because they really gave them a lot.
Or I'll throw something else out. Are they recurring this season? Do they come back and do a few episodes?
That I don't know. If not, I would be surprised.
Yeah, because that's how it played. Like it's played like when they set this up. Like we have every intention of you doing like 3 or 4 episodes this season.
Right.
You're not in Skippy territory. You're in Bobby Costanza territory.
Exactly. Yes, that they would definitely have their SAG health insurance for that year.
You'll get your insurance this year because it was still lower. The rate, the threshold was so lower in 76.
Right.
And then, so Mr. Diamond apparently has like 3 towers that he's building, and the boss comes in saying that we got the diamond deal. I forget what the boss's name is. Do you remember his name?
Charlie? No, something. Eric.
Hitchcock, you know what I'm saying? Mr. This is Mr. Hitchcock, or whatever his name is.
Chuck Hitchcock, that's his name.
It is now. So Chuck Hitchcock comes in and he says, we won the diamond deal. And we were building 3 towers. And he sort of announces that Elise, you're going to be in charge of this. And her reaction is she's aghast because she doesn't have time to do anything that she's supposed to do right now. So she's stunned that he's handing this huge architectural project to her. And she says, I don't have the time to do this. And I thought to myself, has anyone ever said to their boss, I'm sorry, boss, but I don't have the time to do the job that you pay me to do?
That was, the only other, as soon as you said it, it made me think of that subplot in Kramer versus Kramer, when Dustin Hoffman has to be like, look, I have to pick Billy up. I can't do this. And then they like start to fire him or something. Yeah.
It's like, what, people won't work together on something like this? You can't, there's not human beings. Yeah. It was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. You're going to miss 20 minutes of work today. Well, in that case, after 12 years, you're fired.
Yeah, exactly.
okay, that seems sort of harsh. And in this one, Elise actually looks at her boss and says, I don't have the time to do this. So your boss at the architectural firm has asked you to become the architect on a building. And you're saying, I don't have the time to do this. Isn't that a resignation?
Yeah. What else? What else could you take that as? Because it's like,
I don't know.
well, then I guess sharpen the
boss
pencils.
stood there. Right, the boss stood there and took it. It was like, really? You just, hey, will you do this for me, employee? And the employee goes, no, sorry,
No.
boss, don't have the time.
Well, you know, people have some negative things to say about Chuck Hitchcock, but he's very loyal. And if you're too busy to do work, he's fine with it.
He is. And then the phone rings on top of all this mishigas, and Andrew has not been picked up at daycare or preschool or wherever the hell he is. No one has picked him up, and she has to go. I don't know. That's where I'd make my first phone call. Now, if she was convinced that Steven was supposed to pick him up, why is she running out immediately instead of going, give me just 1 second here. Hey, Steven, why aren't you picking up Andrew? Didn't you say you would pick? Oh, you didn't? Okay. Well, one of us has to pick up Andrew. Can you do that? She also appears to be running out of work midday. And she's going to be on for the day.
Yeah.
So, okay, I wish I had a job where I could just leave at midday and then not have to come back to work again.
I mean, architects, they really have the life. That's why George Costanza always wanted to pretend to be an architect.
He made the assumption that they had the life.
Yeah.
So we cut to the kitchen, and Steven and Andrew are in the kitchen. This was another moment that I had a total disconnect. So she runs out to pick up Andrew. We cut to the kitchen. Steven and Andrew are in the kitchen. So the first thing was, I don't understand. Why is Andrew at home? I thought he needed a pickup. That's what we just cut from. Andrew needed a pickup at school. Why is he at home? Okay, now we're getting to the so-called plot of the episode.
Welcome.
Yes, 2 minutes before commercial, we're finally there, kids, to the so-called plot of this episode. Andy is at home, and what was it? Oh, Andy loved something. Oh, he said he loved it, and he never looked at something. He said he loved something, and he never looked at it.
The yo-yo?
Yeah, that's what it was. He never even looked at it.
Here, they do a thing with the yo-yo. Steven, Michael Gross, can do an around the world with the yo-yo. But they, two separate times call it a loop-de-loop. And I'm like, can the writers
just...
yeah, everyone knows it's an around the world. How did the writers not do that?
Yeah, you know why I'm gonna throw something out? Is around the world a trademark from the Duncan Company?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, though.
I've seen cooking shows where around the beginning of February, they talk about the big game because the Super Bowl is a trademark of the National Football League. So you can't cook for the Super Bowl. You can only cook for the big game.
Ooh, I did not know that.
So what my thought is, wow, I wonder if the Duncan Company has trademarks on all of the things like walk the dog and as a yo-yo thing, if they own the rights to that and they would have had to pay for to use it.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. The only thing I would then ask is, why did we bring this prop onto the screen?
Have no clue. Thought that myself. Thought, they must have had a yo-yo on the set for Andrew, and it's like, they were fooling around with it and they wrote it in. It just made no sense. Because, by the way, we never come back to it again. It's not for a moment before, not for a moment after. It's gone.
It's definitely one of those things that I'm sure when I saw this episode as a child, I wanted to get a yo-yo.
My favorite thing in this whole little scene is Andy jumping off the counter and almost doing a header into the studio audience. He didn't go straight down. He stumbled a little bit, and it really seemed like it was a very high, hey, and Brian, jump off the kitchen counter and make your exit. And it looked like he almost bit the big one. It was really dangerous.
Michael J. Fox, for as short as he is, he's able to do that. He makes it look easy.
Yeah, but Brian Bonsall cannot at this point. I hope they don't do that anymore. It made me nervous. Elise runs in, and of course, they argue together. Stephen and Elise argue over who was supposed to pick up Andrew. And then Alex is there, and he gets involved in another moment that I think is totally unrealistic. When your parents argue, children are repulsed and they go in the other direction. No child ever stays to mediate an argument between two parents.
My God, I don't think there's a feeling. It's got to be biological or something from evolution. Your shoulders go up and you just run into the other room.
Absolutely. I remember it when I was a child, and I've seen it with my children. So I know this happens. Children do not get involved in parental arguments. They are repulsed. They run in the opposite direction. But here's Alex standing between Stephen and Elise trying to mediate an argument. And no parent says, hey, this is none of your fucking business. Get out of here.
Yeah, it gets very sitcom-y in this way where it's like, you just lose all of the reality of these relationships.
Right. Because it remains relatively lighthearted with Alex's inclusion, and nobody even gets angry at Alex for this. It could have gotten very heated here because clearly there was a miscommunication between Stephen and Elise, and their kid ended up not getting picked up. And Elise really believes it's Stephen's fault, and Stephen believes it's Elise's fault. But there's only one person putting pressure to quit their job with every jab, and that's Stephen towards Elise.
Yeah, exactly. And Alex is being offensively chauvinistic about everything.
Absolutely. Backing his father up, like, exactly, that mom should quit her job, really.
Yeah. And this is something that occurred to me, because it's something that is in the conversation that's happening right now. Maybe there's no point in getting into it, but it's interesting to me, especially with shows like, especially Family Ties, because I think All in the Family maybe did it better, but it used to get dinged for this from people on the left, back when All in the Family was on, that they were giving a platform, a word we use now, to Archie Bunker, and that Archie Bunker was likable, and he said all these horrific things. And so by having that point of view out there and giving it time and giving it a weekly place to be spouted, people would identify with it or find common ground with that.
And would say it's all right to be a bigot. Look at Archie Bunker. He's very likable, and he's a bigot.
Right. And so you have a 24-minute show, and the stuff that you choose to put on it, even if it's saying at the end of it all, well, this is a dumb character, and so we don't side with that person. Well, you gave that person 6 minutes to tell their point of view, and you didn't really give the other point of view that is apparently your point of view, the one that says women should be able to work. So whose side are you really on at the end of it all?
You know, it's funny, and maybe that's the fault of the multi-writer writing staff, where you lose a singular point of view, and it becomes a muddy point of view, where it's like, nah. If one person wrote it, they would say, but wait a minute. My whole point is a woman has the right to choose here. A woman should be just as viable as the breadwinner of the family as a man is. And nobody once mentioned curtailing hours, working from home. No one mentioned any of the other. It was either have a job or quit a job.
Yeah. And then the argument that you heard the most from is the quit the job argument.
You should be quitting the job. And we actually end this first act with somebody uttering the words, well, it's settled. It seems like it's settled. I don't know how it's settled, but they appear to think it's settled.
Now, before we go to commercial, do they also have the same, because it's the same sort of thing that happens when the sisters come in, mom and dad leave, and then Alex has a scene with Jennifer Mallory, and then Lauren comes in too.
Right here in the next act, right?
Oh, is that an act two? Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. So we'll get to that after this break. We'll be right back. Here, I'm just going to plug in my computer. It's about to die.
Oh, sure.
All right, I'm ready.
Right.
And we're back. So where are we now? Because this is especially when I started to tune out hardcore.
Well, I understand why, because at this point the show is going, it's droning on with no real point and no end in sight. We're in the kitchen. Thank God there's orange juice in the scene. It kept my attention for a little bit longer. And mom and dad are still arguing. And Alex comes in, and this is where he truly tunes us out with his Joan of Arc history lesson.
Oh God, yeah. That was terrible. It made no sense.
None. It was like random. I didn't get it. It wasn't connected to the episode. There was no emotion behind it. And then he's giving this lecture to Mallory and Jennifer. And once again, I feel like he's the male oppressor of two girls. And it's, this whole week, with this whole Harvey Weinstein, I know you've been resisting mentioning this. Yeah. This whole Harvey Weinstein story has just made us hyper aware of when men are misogynistic to women.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's what's coming out is there was a whole bunch of people in the business who were totally aware of what was going on and just looked the other way. And when I see Alex doing this, I think to myself, A, why aren't the girls kicking his ass? Which did almost happen in this scene, thank God.
Yeah, that was interesting that they did that.
It was interesting that they were almost going to kick his ass. It was like, how long are you going to let him talk down to you before you crush this 83-pound, 5'2" Canadian puss? I don't understand it, Mallory. You're twice as tall as him and just as good an actor. I don't care if he is a movie star. Tell him to shut the fuck up. And so she and Jennifer sort of kind of did. And right at the right moment, Lauren walks in, and there's this physical bit of Lauren getting in between Alex and Jennifer and Mallory. And you sort of have a scene with Alex and the three girls, and it goes right back to square one, where now he's misogynistic in front of Lauren and Mallory and Jennifer.
I honestly don't know how Lauren stays with him, and I think they ask him that at a certain point. That they ask.
I think they actually do. How do you do this, right? Because the assumption is that, well, she seems like she's a hip young woman who would at least have some self-esteem, and it's like everybody sort of looks the other way and rolls their eyes at all of Alex's sociopathic things.
You know what? It's nobody's perfect. This world proves that day in and day out, that everyone is terrible, and the best that you can do is try to be better and stuff like that, and try to call out when people are being bad and force them to be better, to not hurt people and not to offend people or not to make people's lives more difficult and stuff like that. And the fact that in this family that they let Alex do this is insane to me. Like, if the reality is these parents are left-wing hippies, but then at the same time I have to double back and say, no, obviously not, because Steven is such a dickhead too.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how it works. I guess that's what happened, is that hopefully maybe Andy, because he's the baby, will end up being a left-wing millennial.
Exactly, a bit more socially conscious than the rest.
But like, it's just really sad to me that when people let shit go by, and especially in families, instead of saying, hey, stop this, you're being a bad person. That's how it should be. And then instead of becoming defensive, looking at yourself and trying to be better. And that's, it's horrible that this show is showing that mediocrity of morality, where it's just letting things go because you don't want to rock the boat.
Well, that's the whole thing is, there's every family, I think, has its own mythology, and they don't want to rock the boat of that mythology, because if they do, then they have no identity as a family. And I think that the mythology of the Keaton family is that they're feminists.
Yeah.
And whether reality matches up to the mythology is unimportant to the Keatons, but it seems it's important to us for some reason. And it's incongruous to me that they seem to be raised in a way where it's like, consider the other side, children. And so they've been told this for so many years, and then when push comes to shove,
it doesn't matter.
They just right, doesn't matter. They just do what they want to do. We end the scene in the kitchen with Elise assuring her family that she knows she hasn't been a good mommy, and she said, "I can handle this." So we cut to the office. And we find out immediately that Andrew is being picked up from preschool by Stephen and dropping Andy off at her office for the rest of the day.
Which is fine. That happens, right? Sometimes kids go to offices.
It is fine, and it does happen. However, it seemed as though, once again, well, she seemed over prepared for it. Like it just once again, everything, it was just very clumsy. Jerry announces first off the bat, Jay Thomas announces he doesn't like kids. And Andrew comes in with Stephen and announces within what, 3 seconds? I want to go home.
I mean, that's what kids do.
Right. And of course, Elise's response to that is, do I have something fun for you? And she pulls out a lump of clay. And I wish I was joking, but she literally pulls out a lump of clay and says, hey, look, I've got a lump of clay for you.
God made man in one day, so.
And Brian Bonsall, who I've ripped a new one for an entire season, and my apologies to you, Brian Bonsall, because you're actually sort of entertaining me this season.
Yeah, we need to put an asterisk on this episode. This is the apology episode.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, because he takes the lump of clay and he pounds it and says, I'm done.
Oh, I wish I hadn't missed that part.
Yeah, he takes the lump of clay. It's right in front of him. He like looks at it like, hey, Mom, you gave me a fucking lump of clay. Okay, play with the clay. And he goes, pound. Can we go home now?
That's really good.
Yeah. And then she says, oh, no, look. And this is where it gets fucking ridiculous. Nope, I'm going to play with you. Okay, so you've just been assigned 3 towers. You've announced I can handle it. And not less than 2 actual minutes later, you're on the floor playing Follow the Leader with your 4-year-old and the whole staff.
What do you even... yeah, just leave them alone.
I just don't get it. It's not funny. It doesn't work. And who's going to do that? How about this for parenting? Andrew, Mommy has to do some work right now, so you're going to have to amuse yourself. I know we haven't invented the cell phone yet, so I can't give you that. But how about here's this book. Here's this Etch-a-Sketch. Here's something more than a lump of fucking clay.
I can't believe that the lump of clay stayed good that entire day. It didn't dry out or anything.
I know. And so now they're playing Follow the Leader on the ground, and they're crawling. And who walks in but Carl and Diamond, both of them. Mr. Diamond is there. And they're like crawling right through the new guy's legs, the big boss's legs. And Andrew's there, and he looks up, and he says, and I ain't blaming Brian Bonsall for this, but I am blaming the writers for this line. Will you fire my mommy?
Because he wants her to not work, so she'll stay home and take care of him. This is how misogyny goes from one generation to the next.
Didn't occur to him that maybe Daddy should be fired, then Daddy could come home and take care of him.
Exactly.
So we cut back to home, and it's the living room, and it's a very sweet moment with Meredith Baxter Burney reading a book to Andrew. And
can I just say how exhausting it must be? Like, everyone's relationship is different and stuff like that, right? Everyone has different goals as a couple and stuff like that. And when, someone wants to stay home, that's fine, or wants to go work, and that's fine, and stuff like that. But just imagine, I just want to take a second to imagine, like, 4 seasons ago when they had this debate the first time, Stephen and Elise, and she's like, you know what? I think I want to go back to work. The kids are getting older, and I kind of want to go back to being an architect. And now for the past 4 years, every time this comes up, he's giving her shit. How miserable the two of them must be.
I was just thinking, how resentful is she? You told me we agreed I would go back to work. Not you told me, because then it's a patriarchal society.
Right.
We agreed I would go back to work because that was best for our family. And now every single time we have a scheduling issue, you should quit your job. Fuck you. I reject you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I understand now why he's trying to make out with her in the kitchen throughout this entire episode twice. We get another one in a few minutes where it's like, oh, okay, so she's not in bed with him. She's reading, and clearly in this scene, she's exhausted. She's playing exhaustion. Meredith back playing exhaustion and guilt.
Yes.
Oh, I don't spend enough time. Mommy isn't a good enough mommy for her children. I can't be all things to all people at all times.
And in a different episode, that would have been a fine, point of view for her to, feel guilty or whatever. But, not in this situation. It's not a good plot line.
Who says you're a woman and a damn fine one?
I mean, that sounds like an Alex thing, but is that a Steven thing?
Sure does to me. That's what I'm guessing. And of course, she tells Andrew not to put on his baseball uniform and go up to bed, put himself to bed, change to pajamas. And of course, Andrew's then in his uniform, trying to get to him somebody to help him to go to bed. And she tells him to go back. And
can I ask you a question? Yeah? Remember last season when Jennifer was constantly taking care of Andrew? Do you think that this was an ongoing, now we're seeing the actual answer for why that is? Because they were just hanging on by a thread the whole time.
And we needed somebody to be taking care of him, and it was Jennifer at that time.
Jennifer.
The question is, why isn't it Jennifer now? Why isn't it Mallory now?
Right.
And then we get another one of these awful speeches that they're forced to give the actor to make the episode have some dramatic chops to it. And it's a speech by Elise about how her mother took care of her when she had the chicken pox and she was a child. The details I don't remember because I was vomiting during most of this.
Chicken pox will do that.
It will. It was just an awfully treacly moment where you could see exactly where this was going, and it was unpleasant, and I didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
And she states to Stephen that she's worried that she's not creating any chicken pox memories for Andrew. It comes down to a very basic thing where I just think children, the one basic truth is that I think we all know, and this has nothing to do with men or women, children just want the attention of their parents when they're young.
Yes.
That's what they crave. They want attention, and they want it from their parents. And so he's worried that Andrew doesn't have any memories. Well, and if parents don't have all the time in the world, then you make the time that you do have with your children special. And that's all you can do.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, and kids remember the strangest crap anyway that you can't plan for.
Absolutely.
My parents, when I was 5 years old, and this is, I think, the last time I ever went to Disney World or any Disney until I worked there. We went to Disney World on vacation, flew down, and I don't remember anything of the trip except for the fact that they got me Starscream the Transformers toy in order to keep me quiet on the plane. And
how old were you?
I was 5.
Ah.
And that is the only part that I remember is playing with Starscream.
Wait, so you were 5, and how old was Barbara then?
3.
Wow, that's taking 2 young children to Disney World.
Yeah, well, my grandmother lived down there too, so it was also a family visit thing. But it was we're gonna take the kids that was making memories, going to Disney World, and literally the only thing I remember is Starscream.
Is the Transformer?
Yeah.
And so we end this episode with her worried that she's not making memories. Stephen assured her that they are making memories, and they kiss. So basically, nothing changed from the moment 1 to the last moment of this episode.
I mean, that's sort of how sitcoms work, but not this kind of a sitcom. This kind of a sitcom is where you're learning lessons.
No one learned anything in this except they probably Lauren should quit her job.
Yeah, how dare she go to school for psychology?
I know, and it was like I also thought to myself, you know what? The fucking balls of you to ask your son's new girlfriend to pick your child. You have 4 children. Pick your child up. Stop making babies.
Now, you say that, and there's a funny, right before the tag, before the end of the episode, they start joking around about having another kid, and it almost gets serious.
Steven made that, and I thought to myself, you gotta fucking be kidding me.
And what was the other thing I wanted to say? That was it. That was it. This episode didn't deserve that much insight, but we gave it a lot.
We gave it a lot of insight for, and especially we even related it to Harvey Weinstein, which I think is really a stretch, but I'm proud of us.
Yeah, I think we did a commendable job for that.
We're touting ourselves like we were the president throwing out paper towels.
Oh boy! Oh, what a time!
They were soft paper towels, and the people really wanted them.
They loved it.
They loved it. They were so into it.
Oh, God.
Of course they were into it. They were out of paper towels. Have you ever tried cleaning up after a flood? Paper towels are pretty helpful.
Listen, I've spilled beer at a party and paper towels didn't do shit.
It ain't gonna help. It ain't gonna help your 4 feet of water in your living room.
Well, it's brawny.
It is. There is that.
All right. Rate and review our show on iTunes. For questions and comments, start again. Oh, boy. Rate and review our show on iTunes. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at QTWFT for updates, and you can follow each of us on Twitter. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep. And Scott. Scott, that's the one who's not here. Yeah. Scott is at Follow Jones.
And you can like our page on Facebook. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon, at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and an online community supporting other creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. Fanbasepress.com. We'd like to thank Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song Without Us. Check out her website at perryadams.com. We'd like to thank Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. And finally, we'd like to thank Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. Gang, we'll see you next week.
Sha-la-la-la.
Bye.